I don't know when we're gonna
I don't
start.
know if you got a chance to see it, but that the most beautiful response.
Well, so that's what I wanted. That's what I was trying to say when you couldn't hear me. As
Yeah.
I read it, and yeah, I knew she'd be like the perfect person to talk to for this.
Although she misses the whole Deborah
Well, but that's okay because we
in
got
the old
that
in the Old Testament, yes. And
because you got that, and so it's like to me, it's like that's what dream interpretation is. Some people give you some, and some people give you another. But she got the Nox, the goddess Nox.
yeah. I forwarded it. I thought it was such a beautiful meditation that it could only help.
Yeah, yeah, and then she brings in Willa Cather. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I had sent her in my original message, I had sent her the link to our
yeah,
Shelley interview, but it was really beautiful. And I thought it was a very good example of spirituality in a non-religious sense. And as you
yeah.
know, I'm very fond of this woman, Britt Hartley, with her website, No Nonsense Spirituality. And occasionally I send you something when I think it's really good. And she's always arguing that you can have spirituality as an atheist or, wherever you are on your religion spectrum, religious belief spectrum, you can have spirituality. And there's a very famous atheist, I don't know if you know him, Matt Delahanty. I consider him quite obnoxious. I don't normally listen to
I
his
never
stuff
heard of him.
because
Yeah.
it's not appealing. But he did a rebuttal to Britt Hartley, and I watched that, and he was totally denying that there can be anything spiritual. The spirituality is like a joke, or it's a oxymoron or whatever.
People are fooling themselves. People
And
are
so I
fooling
thought I
themselves.
would
Yeah.
just redact that thing that sent me and send it to Britt
Yeah.
and going, I just think this is a beautiful example of what you can achieve. And really, in one sense, all that spirituality is a deepening. It's a deepening of, I mean, it's a deepening of a whole range of things.
You know, okay. And I'm going to challenge that because I feel like it's a specific, the reason why there's this guy, I forget his name. I just completely went on my head and you said it seconds ago because I don't care. But the reason there's this guy who wants to vehemently say you're fooling yourself or there's no such thing as spirituality. That I think is generally just a denial of that there's anything but the physical world.
No, of
And
course it is.
right.
Yes.
And so I don't think it's just a deepening. I think it's a deepening of connection and understanding with the non-physical world.
Yes, that's true. I
So and
I
and
would agree with that.
yeah, and the beginning of every religious tradition is a mystic who would be absolutely considered, to have spirituality or have a deep connection with the spirit world or the non-physical world. And then they have all these revelations and experiences and they are this certain way and it's charismatic and then it becomes a religion. But the beginning of religion is always about, a mystical experience.
Right,
And
right.
so I feel like religion is sort of the codifying of someone's experience rather than saying, which I think is why the Buddhists, sorry, I should finish that sentence, rather than saying, hey, people can have these experiences and there is like a process that people go through when they do that, which I think is why Buddhists tend to say, like, we're not a religion, because what they're saying is, like, this is a process that you can go through to have this connection.
Hmm.
And we're not going to codify what the connection looks like, which is interesting. Not that I'm a Buddhist or anti-religion, but I think that people get confused about that. And
Yeah.
maybe because it's confusing, because you can have spiritual experiences that are deepening where you're connecting with something that's not good, right? Do you think
Right.
that's true? I think that's true.
I do think that's true. I don't. really know how to think about, well, no, that's not right. The problem of evil. Um, well, I would say I don't have any kind of take on the problem of evil that I have any confidence in. I'm like,
I get that.
uh,
Same.
I don't know. So, I mean, a lot of people become atheists because they can't believe in a God that allows suffering.
Yeah.
And suffering, not just of humans, but of little animals, that the entire structure of life on this planet, at least animal life, I don't know about plant life. I don't know if plant life is built on suffering, but a lot of animal life, one species survives on the suffering of another, or so they argue. There are
Yeah.
predators and yada yada. And a lot of people fall, their belief ends because of that. And Alex O'Connor, who's a very famous skeptic on the internet and whom I do follow and listen to his content because he's not obnoxious like that other guy. Alex O'Connor, that's a huge part of his argument. The how I can't believe in a God that sort of structures his creation around at least partly the principle of suffering. I don't, that's not what my values are. That's not what determined how I think about these things.
What
But I
deter
don't, yeah, and I think the problem of evil is important, but I just don't have any confidence in how to think about it.
I don't either. It's like the thing I least understand.
Right. So and I think this will, I'm saying this because it came to my mind and it must have come to my mind because I think it relates to this, and I will therefore say it in hopes that together we can make it work. So, I am very much a math idiot, very much a math idiot. And I've been thinking the last 2 or 3 years, probably as a result of getting to know you and being in more of these much more scientific conversations where I go, I'm not really, I don't know enough to really understand this. I've been thinking about, well, how can I fix my math deficit? And I even asked ChatGPT to give me a calculus lesson, although I'm so far, the last math I took in high school was geometry. And I was in an honors program at Texas Tech where I got to take math, literally math for people who don't like math. Because it was all principles. I love that. So there's an app called Brilliant.
Hmm.
Familiar with it?
No.
And it just popped up. And probably because I asked ChatGPT to give me a calculus lesson every week, although ChatGPT seems to have completely forgotten.
No, yeah, it can't do schedules.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, well, whatever. And so Brilliant is an app to teach you things. It only teaches two things: math, and all the way up to it teaches math all the way up to calculus, and then it teaches coding, and which I'm not in that part. So I started the math, and it says, where do you want to start? And it offered arithmetic as a starting point. And I go, yeah, I want to
Sure.
start with arithmetic. I just want to go from the beginning. I don't think I was ever well taught. So I've been doing, it's only been like 4 days, but I've been doing fractions. And one of the realizations now is just doing these simple things is now I know why I got all those SAT questions wrong 55 years ago, right? Oh, yeah, like they will show you, this is true, they will show you four pictures and three, and they have kind of complicated geometric shapes, and one of them is not like the other. Well, that's a standard SAT question. And it never occurred to me when I was taking the SAT or any subsequent IQ test or whatever that I needed to think about what percentage of the geometric space did the shaded parts account for. But that's what this lesson is based on. So my point, and now to start approaching the problem of evil, my point is when I do about 20, 30 minutes every day. When I do it, I feel like my brain is different
Yes.
when I'm grappling with these things. And thinking about our mutual acquaintance, someone who was, I'm not going to mention her name, but someone we've actually pandaed who recently had a stroke. And reading about what happens when you have a stroke, well, you lose blood flow to certain parts of the brain, which then leads you to lose certain capacities. And so it got me to thinking, well, does my blood just not flow well in the math parts of my brain? It's never flowed well. Can I fix that at my advanced age by dutifully doing this for a year? Hmm. So then that gets me to the problem of evil. So the fact that some animals eat each other, I don't think is evil. I don't know what to call that.
That's just what I wanted to talk about. I'm so glad you're saying this. Yes. That's just
It
the way it works.
yes, it's certainly a suffering for the one that, you
That's the
know.
part I want to question.
Okay, so go ahead.
But I want to make sure you got out what you wanted to get
Well,
out.
let me just finish the blood flow evil thing. So let's put aside the whole animal issue, which I don't think is in the same, it's a category error as far as I'm concerned. But let's talk about people who do evil things. And of course, there's subjectivity as to what evil things are. But we've generally agreed on a few things in society that are evil. All societies agree. And and we know that some of these are the result of some kind of mental, I don't
Illness or
even,
something.
illness or deficit or malformation or something. So is evil like my math problem? I just don't get the right blood flow into the part of the brain that would regulate my activities. So I
This is
think
going
I
to take the entire panda to talk because this is what I think about this. This is so juicy and this is great. Yeah.
and
Um,
by the way, folks, Panda listeners, I'm not making this up. This is actually how I think and where my head goes on a regular
no,
basis,
of
which
course you're not
is,
making it up.
I know, of course, but I have many friends who have said to me, "Oh, Carmen, you think too much," as if I could control it.
Yeah, I
I,
take it as a compliment.
I can't. I've been thinking about this. Well, since I did my 30 minutes of a brilliant this morning, I was going, I guess the blood just doesn't go right in my head. It doesn't go to the math parts.
But it could be a thousand things. It could be the blood goes fine, but your math parts are built in a different way that is
Hmm.
not typical, and you use them differently. I've seen you try to calculate a tip. Like I can tell you that um, your brain might be
I'm sorry,
atypical.
you said you see me what? Oh,
Try to
calculate a
calculate a
tip.
tip.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and my husband's the same way. I'm like, how is this hard? But that's because for me, um, my brain is in that part of my cognition is fairly typical or adept. And in other parts of my cognition, it's not. Like like in parts of my cognition that are about how do you how do you experience shame over something you've said? I'm not so adept, right? I just like, but that's a problem. That could be a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I this so we all have, like there's you're adept at some things, and being adept at those things can make you worse at other things because the brain really can only do so much. But the mind, I believe, is what really learns. So when you're learning, um, and let me explain what I mean by mind as different
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah,
brain.
yeah.
So the
Because
brain is like this hardware,
brain is
um,
hardware. Yeah.
and or wetware, really, because it is pretty wet and not hard at all. It's very soft. Um, and the mind, you can think of it as the software, but I don't think it, personally, I don't think it just runs on the brain. I think it kind of runs on your whole body. I think it runs on the area around your body. I think it runs on communities. The mind is expanded. The mind, it does not just what your brain does. So your brain is an important part of it. As you know, if like a friend has a stroke, you could see that the brain is an important part of how the mind functions in a big way, right? So I'm not saying there's no relationship for sure, but the mind can learn, and essentially I think of it as training the brain to remove some of those deficits. And I think that's what you're doing. So like if
Mm,
I know that sometimes I have a poor ability to filter my words. So my that's just true about my brain. It's like one of my legs is longer than the other, right? Like that's just true about my body. But I can learn how to walk differently so that I don't injure myself trying to pretend that my legs are the same length. They're not. And and I think that's what real learning is, especially as an adult. You're using your mind to bootstrap your brain and say like, okay, like I get you have this deficit, but we're going to do it this way, and then we're going to do it
hmm
this way. We're going to do it this way until you get it. And otherwise, I have no explanation for how learning can really work. If you're using your brain to change your brain, there's no way to really explain how that, in my mind, how that could, in my mind, how that could improve things. So there's that. But then the other that speaks to the suffering piece in
Yes.
that there's a distinction literally in the brain and in our minds between suffering and pain. So there's actually a pathway that if you're like a lifelong meditator or something, there's certain people who are adept at even if they're even if someone takes a something sharp and pokes it into their arm, they'll say, wow, that hurts, but they're not suffering.
Mm,
So there's one pathway that will light up, which is the notification. Something's wrong. I don't like that. I would like that thing to be removed from my arm. And then, but there's not the other pathway that lights up that says, ooh, this is really bad. It should not be that way. And the distinction between those two things is I do think that's what people don't understand, that you can use your mind to actually completely reduce and eliminate suffering. You will still have pain, but suffering actually isn't part of the plan. I think having a mind that can change so you can move forward in a way that's better is part of the plan. And so part of the whole Buddhist thing is the Buddhist philosophy is like reducing suffering. What does that mean? It doesn't mean there won't be any pain. But one great definition of suffering is thinking things shouldn't be the way that they are right now.
hmm
So if you can just say like, ow, I broke my leg, it really hurts. I want to cry out in pain and I'm sobbing and this is really painful, but you're not spending all the energy saying, and it shouldn't be that way because it's so useless. It's so useless because it is that way. And that's why I don't think animals suffer. I think they definitely could be in pain. I think there's needless deaths and injury of animals that feels like it's just on a spiritual level not okay. And I don't think they suffer. I think human beings are blessed with this capacity to say, oh no, things should be different.
Hmm.
And it helps you build a different world, but not in the moment. In the moment when you're in pain, it doesn't help anything to say it should be different. All of your attention should be going to how do I get rid of the thing that is causing me pain?
Right. Well, I mean, what I wrote down when you were talking is unmet expectations, that
Mm,
suffering is when we have an expectation of how things should be, and they're not that way.
yep.
And we're like actively
Pissed.
trying to, actively pissed and actively trying to get it turned around.
That's right. And that strikes me as of course, the ultimate atheist position, which is like, well, I have the expectation if there is a God, God would be like this and do
Yes.
these things. It's not like that, so fuck you.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like, could it be that you're wrong about your expectations?
Yes, yes. And I actually think, because I watch Alex O'Connor in many debates, and I actually think that that is often the very best uh, point that people who are theists
Yeah.
will make is, who are you to define what God is? I mean, you seem to be the least qualified person here
Exactly.
is it, to have a view on this. Yeah.
Right, which is why I don't think atheism really exists. Like anyone who says they're atheist is having a religious position about God. They're having an
Yes.
opinion about God, which I don't think an
Right.
atheist would have. I think agnostic is actually the more correct
Yeah. You just
approach
don't
in that
know.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
about evil, like, let's talk about that because when I was growing up, I was growing up in a household with, therapists, and the way we would talk about evil would be like, look, evil doesn't exist. People are mentally ill, and for psychological needs or physiological ones, they do things, or people are desperate and they do things, if they're addicted or hungry or thirsty or lonely or and then those things add up, right? And I think that's a good explanation for many, many, many people. And the more I get connected with the mystical and the religious world, and the more I pray and the more I talk to people about the gift of the non-physical, it seems to me there is a feeling, and I'm not saying that all feelings are correct, but in the world of the non-physical, like all you have to go on are feelings, right? It's hard to measure right now. But there is this feeling that there can be such a thing as like sort of floating evil energy, if you want to call it that, that can attach to sort of anything, can attach to a person, to an AI, to a notebook, a computer,
Yeah.
um, an animal. And I sort of think by saying no that so in the Enlightenment we said like no,
I'm sorry. In what?
like
In
during the Enlightenment it was the start of saying during and after the
what?
Enlightenment it was the start, I
Oh,
believe.
the Enlightenment. Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
were saying during the alignment, and I thought I've
Sorry, I
missed
have a
that.
cold. I
Okay.
have a cold, which is why we're
Yeah.
not together on the couch,
Yes.
which kills
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Plus, you were gonna make
Yeah.
popcorn, and I was
I
like,
know. Yeah. This is
oh,
officially a couch panda, but it isn't.
and I so wanted popcorn, so I might have to make myself popcorn. But anyway, I don't know if it's good for colds, but who cares? Um, no, during the Enlightenment and after, there was this like, no, we don't have to condemn this person and say that the devil. It was the beginning of that. It's the beginning of modern psychology, right? Moving into, Freud and Jung, et cetera. It was this idea that we don't have to say the devil's in this person. We can actually sort of try to diagnose what's going on psychologically. And I think that was really valuable. What it what it kind of removes is this idea, and I think it's kind of a loss, is this idea that you can say, um, right now, that person's possessed, but I
Mm.
love that person, and maybe there's something we could do to drive out that evil spirit.
Hmm.
Rather than, and it's almost turned like mental illness into the new demon, right? So it's like,
Yes.
no, there's not a demon in them. Now they're just always crazy. And so it reminded me,
Mm.
and so it's like, oh no, like that kind of sucks. So we don't have to treat them with any compassion or anything because they're just crazy and they're throwaway people. And so when I was watching The Chosen, have you watched this at all?
No, I have not. I know what it is, but I have not watched it.
So Brooks and I have been watching it, and I find it really
What
compelling.
what
What is
platform
it?
is it on?
It's on Amazon, and
Oh,
it's
man, I could
about the
watch it then.
yeah, it's about the life of Jesus, and they
Yep,
talk a lot
yep.
about the like early Jewish aspects, which I find fascinating how that is all done. But there's a moment in there where the woman who becomes Mary Magdalene, one of Jesus's big disciples and helpers, um, she's crazy. I mean, she's like psychotic, and Jesus heals her. That's what happens. And she's better. And she's like, yeah, like I'm not there anymore. Like he drove that out, and now I'm just hanging out with Jesus. And so like that's the kind of recovery that is considered to be impossible now. So like when someone goes into spontaneous remission, doctors actually literally get pissed off sometimes because they don't understand how it happens. And so it's like if
Mm.
something can be transient, like the devil's in there, and then there's a way to get the devil out. I get that there's a big downside of that and a big stigmatization, but it removes this possibility that it's transient.
So it's like a better metaphor,
I sort of think it's a good
or
metaphor and
more
we've lost it.
useful metaphor.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's like we lost it. And of course, like you can explain the Jesus healing by saying, here's this person who's really loving and compassionate and just looked at her and said, like, I get that you're crazy now. How would you like to not be crazy? And she's like, you're loving me and I feel great and I'm gonna go be with you, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that's a psychological way of explaining it. But it is a metaphor that I feel like we've lost, and with it, we've lost this possibility of healing.
That's right. So two things. Um, and they're both ands. Um, there's a story in one of the Gospels, and I think only one of the Gospels has the story, but it's someone is possessed. Jesus comes across this person who's possessed, orders the demons to leave the person, and the demons end up I don't know, remember how or why, but they end up jumping into these pigs.
Oh
And
yeah,
this
right.
and this group of pigs go crazy and run off a cliff and kill themselves. Well, this is one of the gospel stories that Alex O'Connor says like is a proof point for him. Why would God do that? Why would God kill the poor innocent pigs to uh you know in the process of getting the demons out of that guy? So, do you have a comment on that?
Well, it just makes me think a really good explanation for that scientifically would be the humans were eating some kind of substance that was like a psychedelic or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they stopped eating it and they fed it to the pigs. The pigs went nuts and jumped off a cliff. So, and then since they stopped, saw that in the pigs, they're like, well, we're not going to eat that anymore. And that really
Ah,
helped.
yeah,
So if you believe that God is like, I mean, clearly it's all about what the nature of God is when you say, do you
right.
believe in God? So if you believe that God is supposed to be someone who makes everything blissful and awesome right now, obviously, if that's the only God that you believe in, then you don't believe in that God because obviously things aren't blissful all the time for anyone ever, right? So it just feels simplistic to me to
Yeah,
to just say therefore God doesn't exist. It's like, no, what about a God that's like, hi, I'm the God of love and I love everything exactly as it is, including all this messed up stuff. And it's our job to grow and change and figure it
mm-hmm.
out. Or what if
Yeah,
I'm the God of, electromagnetism and that's actually God? You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah. Right,
yeah.
right. Well, and then the second thing I wrote down was in some Christian traditions, I don't think it's part of the Jewish tradition, but I don't know. But It's not part of, I don't think this is part of the Catholic tradition. I think it's part of the Mormon tradition. I'm trying to remember whom I've heard talk about this, who I've heard talk about this. Um, there's a story that in the beginning, when the devil was part of God's crew, God and the angels were all up there, and he humanity had been created, and they were out doing their stuff early on, early stuff. The devil and God, and apparently the devil was like next to God,
Yeah, like God's favorite buddy.
God's guy, right?
Yeah.
And the devil said, well, I think we should make them obey all the rules and, let's make them perfect from the get-go.
Hmm.
And God said, no, I don't want that. I want, essentially, it's a free will argument.
Yeah.
I want them to develop and make mistakes or whatever. And so we can think of Satan or the devil, excuse me, as a really annoying micromanager who God said, no, not in this company. You can go somewhere else. You know, I'm not going to be the controlling bastard that you want to be.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that story. I find it. I'm not going to say I find it convincing, but I like the ideas behind it. I liked the reason why there was a rift. I like that explanation
Yeah.
because some of the other explanations leave you like the devil wanted to be in charge, or there's nothing you can hang your hat on as to this why this you know rift of the ages occurred.
So for some reason, and maybe you can figure out why that reminds me of a Jewish story, because in the Jewish world, there is no devil, right?
Yes,
Because
that's what I
that's
thought.
the division of God doesn't make sense. The whole point is like in the Roman tradition, there's all these gods and stuff, and it's like, no, no, it's one. And so, but anyway, that reminds me of this joke. So there's this guy who really believes that he's a rabbi, maybe he's a priest, maybe he's like back in the day, and he really believes that his way of doing pigeon sacrifice, yeah, he has to be a priest, is the best way, and he's like, look, the Torah is still being written. Like, I guess this is really old. Torah is still being written. I can do it this way, and I can prove to you that my way of doing the pigeon sacrifice is the best. And the other priest he's talking to says, oh yeah, no, you're wrong. You know, the first one says, look, God is on my side. If I'm wrong, let God strike me down with a lightning bolt. And God strikes him down with a lightning bolt. And the other one goes, let us figure this out ourselves.
Oh, that's yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
that's a good story. I have to think about that.
so it's like the deal with God is you made us to figure this shit out. And you get to have an opinion and you can show us with all of your might and everything what your opinion is. But like you told us, we're supposed to figure this out. So we're taking you at your word.
Mm. So I had one other thing. I don't know if you had another topic.
No, I don't know.
I don't know that we had really topics, but
I
I
don't
I
think
had
I
a,
do.
a topic that I wanted to bring up. So,
Oh, I did have another topic. Good. Let's see.
oh,
It'll probably match.
well, probably not. As you know, I had house guests about 10 days ago, and I had you and other people over, and we played games
Yeah, I
with one of
loved
my
it.
house guests,
Yeah.
my college roommate. So so as we've discussed this before, it's one of the most fascinating people I know because you said it that she kind of just lives through love or embodies love.
Yes.
And she lives, I'm going to say it slightly different. I'm describing the same thing, but it really came clear that afternoon. So we were playing this really fun game called Codenames. It's really great. It's very flexible. Any number of people can play it. And really love the game. Well, she loves all moments and periods of froth and effusiveness and lightness in life. She
Yes.
loves all of that.
Yes.
Because that all tends to be very emotional,
Yes.
emotion driven.
Yes.
And so we were all playing, and at one point she said, "Oh, I want to give the clues. I want to give the clues." So she started giving the clues. And I looked at her and I was watching her and I was thinking, her entire physical demeanor changes when
Yes.
she's trying to think.
Yes.
And it's not dumb, by the way. I don't mean to ever
No,
suggest
but she
that.
was trying to go into analytic mode, and
When
she lives in a different part of her brain. Yeah.
that's it. That's exactly the discussion point that I noticed that
Yeah.
it became so clear to me. I mean, I've always known this about her, but that particular moment was a really clear example of how she disengaged one system and then very slowly trying to bring up
Mm.
the other system. You know, and
Yes.
again, it goes back to my math,
Yes.
blood flow brain issue, you know.
Yes.
I just found it fascinating. And
Well, I don't even know if I can say this. I'll have to check with, but who's very analytical,
yeah,
had a meltdown. So speaking of things being different from the way you expect,
yeah.
because the way she was giving clues. Oh,
Still won, by the way.
we won, and that's what I reminded. But was on my team and that's giving us the clues, and we were
Uh-huh.
guess. And after he said one of the clues, just said right out loud, "But you shouldn't have said that." And I was like, "But she did." It's what was said. And it was great. It was great because it was this like clash of expectations from someone who lives
Yeah,
analytical
he's
and
super analytical.
super
Yes.
analytical, and is not. And we still won today.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
was
exactly. It
fantastic.
was fantastic. And then you missed this because I guess the you and left a few. Well, first, so and and who is 95 years old and was a great player.
It was
Uh,
amazing.
it,
She made our
it's
team
really
win.
sad that her body's letting her down because her brain, for the most part, has not.
Yeah. And she ate
So
about a pound of chocolate.
good for her.
Yeah.
And so I was in my little dining room, well, actually my big dining room, and I have if you remember, I have a tray. So I have a rectangular table and I have a tray that I keep kind of assorted things on that I use when people are over for dinner, napkins, salt and pepper shakers. And I had set that, so we were over there, and I had earlier that day put the tray, it's a rectangular table and a rectangular tray. And I decided, oh, I think I'm going to put it at on the diagonal, 45-degree diagonal.
What?
I think that's more interesting. So I had the rectangular table and the smaller tray sitting at a 45-degree
I would
angle.
have fixed that quickly.
Well, I'm standing there watching and comes into the room, immediately fixates on the tray and turns it around.
Yes,
So
please.
it's rectangle on rectangle. And
Thank you.
I didn't say anything, but I was like, what the fuck? Why is this a rule? Please help me understand
Because
why this is a
symmetry.
rule. Because it's
Because
perfectly
symmetry.
fine. In fact, you know how it is right now? It's at the 45-degree angle, which is how I want it for now. And I'll change. I'll go back to another angle at some time, but you know, it just made me laugh. And of course, nurse and precision is her dominant theology, I think. Yeah, she's much deeper than that, but just for the sake of this argument.
I would have done exactly the same thing. It would have bothered me in my OCD. I have a very, very slight OCD around shapes and the way shapes have to go together. Um,
Ah,
you're like my husband, you have an artistic temperament. And so like sometimes I'll go downstairs in the kitchen and I'll find now the plates are somewhere else. And they're not only somewhere else, they're in like what I believe is an objectively less good place for the plates to
uh-huh,
be.
uh-huh.
He's like, I like to mix it up. And I'm like, all right, I can do this, but it takes effort.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes I fantasize about what it would be like if he weren't alive and the plates never went anywhere else, and I would be sad. Which reminds
Mm.
me of two things I wanted to tell you. One
Yeah,
is
that's right. What else did you want to talk about?
my entire family is aging. They all live in the Chicago area. And this morning I talked to my mom and she's giddy. And I'm like, why are you giddy? She's like, well, Jenny, my sister, discussed moving at home with us. And then,
Oh,
and that's,
and she's in favor of that.
she likes the idea. And then when I said, well, the reason I'm calling you is I talked to my dad and he says that he may one day move in with you. And they're like, great. This is
Ex-husband, by the way,
ex-husband, lesbian moms and ex-husband and sister all under the same roof. So I
and
said,
his partner.
yeah, maybe, right? Like we don't know. And so that I think she'd be open to it, actually. Um, so I said to my mom, well, I would actually be grateful if that happened. I would feel like I was missing out, but I would be grateful. And she takes it as um, grateful that they're all living together under one roof and they're easy to visit and take care of and
Hmm.
stuff, which is part of it. But I said, no, Mom. I mean, grateful that I'm not living with you guys, but that you're all okay. And she
Yeah.
laughed. And it made me realize that there's an understanding, among friends and family that are close of who we all are. Like she knows I would just be destroyed if I lived with all of them. And she
Right.
knows that's not the case for my sister, and it's not the case for my dad, but they all know who I am, and there's no resentment about this. There's no like that's how it relates. There's no you should be this other way.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
unconditional love in my crazy family of the way I am,
Right.
and I appreciate that difference. And so I think I'm in the pocket of the God who says, no, we're not going to make everyone the same and follow all the same. Like, what's the point
Yeah.
of creating if what you
That's what
create
I
is
think.
perfect?
Yeah.
There's no point.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
like, I think I've mentioned this before, but Walter Benjamin, the great
Hmm.
Jewish,
You have mentioned him
really
before.
philosopher, literary critic.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this before, where he was famous for his antiquarian collection of
You
books
may have mentioned it. Yeah.
and
I don't
famous
remember.
for keeping it unorganized in his apartment.
Oh,
This was
yes, right. It's
when he lived
exactly the way he wants it.
when he lived in Berlin, and people kept wanting him to organize it, and he goes, "That would be so boring. Why would I do that?"
Yes. And that's how his mind works.
Yeah.
So I just have this deep appreciation for all the variety of minds.
Well, and that gets me to this, uh, which will probably be my last point, kind of follow up to our current conversation with Eric Bonabeau,
Oh, yeah.
and where, he had this great phrase, the best judge of what Bonobo wants is Bonobo, but Bonobo knows what Bonobo wants. And after he saw it, when we posted it, he goes, what an arrogant prick or whatever he said about
What a
himself.
self-obsessed person.
Yeah, yeah. And I
No,
thought, but I said, no, I think that was, we pick up that thread later on. And to me, it's interesting to ponder the meaning of the fact that none of us can ever know what the other one fully thinks
or feels.
or
Yeah,
feels.
yeah. It's the essential problem of having an individual consciousness. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And also, just to throw this in there, also, we can absolutely know what each other think and feel. And by absolutely, I don't mean correctly, but I mean like with 100% accuracy. But I mean, there are these, I believe telepathy is real, and I believe it can happen at times when it's most needed. Um, Often when someone can't speak,
Yeah.
whether
Well, I,
they're,
I I believe I have a pretty good ability to judge a room, by which I
yeah,
mean to at a glance look at a group of people and go, the vibe is good here, the vibe is unsettled, the vibe is bad, I'm leaving,
mm-hmm,
kind of thing.
mm-hmm,
And often when I'm speaking in public, I believe I sense pretty quickly when the room is getting a little restless and I go, oh, we gotta get funny here or gotta do a check-in, you know. Um, and I think some people just aren't as good at that, at monitoring a room.
yeah. So same, I'm the same way. You and I have the same thing. And I'm kind of amazed by it. And also we both have this thing where when you're about to public speak, something happens and now you're able to do it really well.
Hmm.
Whereas like 5 minutes ago, you'd be like, I don't know what I'm going to say, right?
Right.
And both of those things I think have to do with not staying in your individual consciousness
Oh, yeah.
and instead sort of almost putting your attention on or moving into the collective unconscious. Because now you're not wedded to like, oh, there's me and there's you, and how do you feel that's different from me? It's not this egoic thing. It's almost like, okay, ignore the ego for a second and recognize that like everyone's touching everyone under the water here and just sort of putting your feelers
Yeah,
down.
that's a really good metaphor.
And I think that that actually can be trained, but there's a letting go. There's a letting, I think it can be trained just because I believe I wasn't always that way.
Mm.
And so I must have been trained. And I think part of it was a letting go of the need to control.
Hmm.
Like if you're wedded to this, look, I'm going to be completely in control of my behavior and it's all coming from this like ego. Um, I think it's really hard to sense anything
Yeah.
under the water because that's like saying I don't control the space. I don't control
Hmm. Hmm.
what's happening.
Yeah.
So speaking of control and how we relate to others and how that can change a room and change a field, I want to give a plug to the amazing women that I'm building the Synapse with. This is
Oh,
the con
yes, yes,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah, this is the conference that we're building with. We're going to have 100 people, um, invite only,
So you have yeah, it's an invite only? Oh,
but you can
okay.
apply to be invited.
Okay.
And we want people to apply and any gender to apply, but the facilitators, the speakers, keynotes are all going to be women. And so what we're trying to do is highlight people who need to be heard from in cognitive science, consciousness, AI, and robotics, and essentially combine these fields into what we actually think is a new field going forward, which is like something about like humanity for the first time in our history has the ability to shape new minds and to acknowledge that we're shaping minds every day with what we build in our
Mm-hmm.
technology, human minds and otherwise. And so to create that field from a place where the people who have been sidelined in those disciplines actually can come together from a place of the superpower. Anyone who's been trained as a woman or who embraces the sacred feminine has this superpower of shaping minds. That's literally what interrelationship and attention to interrelationship allows us to do. So it's bringing these people into the room and seeing what we build. And I'm super excited about it.
That's yeah, it's going to be in San Diego.
October 9th through 11th in San Diego. You can go to thesynapse.co. We'll put a link to it. If you're interested in donating, if you're interested in sponsoring, if you're interested in
Yes.
attending, all of those things can be done.
Well, that reminds me of something I did not have on my list to talk about, but a couple of days ago, of someone who might even be a good person to attend. I was talking to a young, probably 22-year-old. She just graduated from college, I think.
Oh, cool name.
And she got her degree in philosophy and political science. And so we spent, an hour and 15 minutes talking about philosophy mostly. And one of the things she said that is probably not in any way a new idea for you, but the formulation was new for me. She said that computation is different from human thought.
Mhm.
And she cited, I guess, an academic Brie, like the cheese, Brie Gertler. Do you know that?
Gertner, maybe?
Gertler.
We'll
I
find
have it
out.
written. Yeah, Bert Gertler, Brie Gertler,
Hmm.
as someone who's writing a lot about that.
Well, why don't we ask
I will
her?
make a point of sending the information to her.
Yeah, it would be great if she could apply. We don't have a registration fee because we want to invite people and then not charge them. But so we're asking our sponsors and donors to pay the cost of the conference rather than the people who are attending.
Right, right.
But we don't pay for attendees to their travel and
Travel.
lodging
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I
unless
know her plan
we do.
is, I shouldn't be talking about her like this, but her plan is, her hope is to go to law school a year from now. So she's just trying to figure out what she's doing now. But it was very heartening for me
Yeah.
to meet this Gen Z person who
Yes.
just so, in fact, I invited her to be, if she would think about being a panda
That would be
at,
great. I really
at
want to
some
talk to more
day.
Gen Z people. I feel like we could spend the next year talking to Gen Z people and kind of scope out that whole generation.
Yeah,
There's some
yeah.
amazing folks.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good plan.
Yeah, you want to intentionally do that, just like focus on Gen Z. That would be
Well,
so
I
cool.
mean, not necessarily we don't do other people, but that maybe we create a Gen Z focus
Yeah.
for the next year.
Yeah.
So like maybe aim like 50%
Yeah.
of our pandas will be with Gen Z in the coming year. I think that would be awesome.
We could, because we have couch pandas, we could do couch pandas, um, pandas of people of different generations, and then Gen Z pandas. We could make it
Hmm.
like a category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks.
Very good. Well, I
I
hope you
would,
feel better.
yeah, I will. I'm doing all the hippie things. You know, I got my zinc, I got my infrared sauna. I'm sure I'll get better in the exact same amount of time that everyone gets
Yeah.
better from this
All
college.
right. All right.
So anyway, all right. Lots of love,
All
Carmen.
right.
Great to see you. And
Good to
so
see
I'm gonna
you.
turn off the recording.